here to discuss a very, very important topic, which is about the nutraceuticals industry reaching $100 billion. Kind of a journey that we want to take up. So the title is Empowering the 100 Billion Nutraceutical India. And how do we find the missing bridges and how do we meet them? And to bring in those very, very insightful points in this, we have four wonderful speakers here. We have Sanjay Mariwala, who's from OmniActives. He's the chairman of OmniActives. We have Dr. Anand Swaroop, who's the president of CFAM. Very, very nice to have you with us. We have Daniel Mabe, who's from Asia Pacific region, president of UNPA. That's wonderful to have you as well. And we also have Pankaj Negi, who's been the Asia Pac head for Astra, right? AstraZeneca.
Astra, yeah.
Astra. All right. So that's the kind of important topic we are on. So let's discuss this. And the first question to you, Sanjay, is
Yes.
how do you envision the nutraceutical growth across the globe? And do you think a $100 billion journey is a possibility?
So if you look at the way the markets have evolved around the world, the nutraceutical business largely started out of Japan, where they looked at natural products being the longevity key to the life in Japan. And I think the Americans copied those ideas and created a huge market. And the way the American market has grown is virtually like a hockey stick if you look at it. Now, why did that happen? That happened because I think the virtues of natural products not having significant side effects, and natural products being good for you as preventives. So preventive healthcare concepts have taken root in the minds of most consumers. Now this has happened because of a lot of awareness building and education, self-education. Okay. So as internet expands and as TV and reach expands, you see that same kind of a education moving across the globe. Okay. Especially in English-speaking India, it's very easy to get that done. Correct. So I don't see any difficulties in creating the kind of growth that we anticipate. Of course, we have many things to work on. One of the things that we have to work on, of course, is to ensure that we target the right segments. Okay. So there is export of ingredients. There's domestic market for formulations and finished products, and then there is contract manufacturers who can generate a lot of business out of India as well. So all these three opportunities exist today in India. Capacities and capabilities exist to do a good job, and we probably need more investors in this space to be able to get this target realized. We of course need government to support with some policies, and we have identified some of those policies. We are starting to talk to the government about these. The third thing we need to create markets.
To the Nutra Task Force, you're speaking to.
So yes, so that's a very good point. What we are doing is we are working with the Nutra Task Force in trying to focus on various government departments to get them focused on what they need to do. So the task force doesn't do it themselves, but they work with the Ministry of Commerce, for example, to create export capabilities.
There's also Department of Nutraceuticals.
And so that's another thing we're trying to establish. We've got the first window opened here,
right?
And now we've got to make it into a full-fledged department. Okay, so that department actually handles issues that the industry needs as policy priorities. Right. Okay, simple things like the laws that get passed. If they are at controversy with the need of the industry, we need to debottleneck those issues. So examples like that. Another area which we need to work on between the Commerce Ministry and the Ministry of External Affairs is creating the corridors of partnerships between certain countries which are better markets or important markets. US, Japan, UAE, for example, GCC countries, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, where we have great relationships as a nation politically, and we should be able to use those effectively to create free trade agreements so that we can open up those markets.
Absolutely.
So these are things we need. The last thing we need in making this work well is probably certain research capabilities within the country, for which both the government and the industry have to actually put hands together, collaborate, and put a research program in place to study out which are the key markets or key opportunities in each market that we should crack, right, and where India can have the capability to build strong competence.
I'll come back to you on the government for that. So one question now that automatically jumps off you, thanks Sanjay, is to Anand. Anand, there's a possibility is what Sanjay said. Now, what are the real challenges and opportunities in this 100 billion journey?
So, if you look at the kind of challenges and opportunity which is out there to achieve this thing, there are more opportunity than challenges. I mean, opportunities are out there that the overall health consciousness is rising in India. People are looking at the preventive health, and this is a trend which is going around the world. Self-care is taking root in India, and it's taking root not only in big cities, even in small cities. COVID was a very positive boost to the whole thing. Then you're looking at a large consumer base. You're looking at millions and millions of people who are
largest
looking for
in the world.
Yeah, the world right there. Then you have a rich heritage of traditional medicines. People, if you talk about herb, chances are they must have eaten it sometime in their lives and some cuisine out there. So that's a really plus point. There's a lot of government support which is coming our way. Government is really looking to facilitate this whole thing.
Right.
Then you're looking at export potential. This tremendous opportunity for Indian knowledge to go over the world and actually help to basically achieve their self-care goals. Then you're looking at the best thing is low cost, high quality production base. It's
GMP,
evolving.
GMPs
GMPs are out there. This evolving. Again, it's evolving very fast pace. Since it's evolving, it's just taking place now, we are adopting the best. So the all
leapfrogging
good
the
things.
entire thing.
Everything is out there, but at the same time, there are a bunch of challenges at the same time.
What are they?
So you're looking at regulatory framework. It's again, it's evolving. There's no harmonization. It takes time, and you know, with this kind of fast growth, it will take some time to get things settled down, come in order. That's a big thing. There is a general lack of awareness of a real education out there, the consumer.
What do you mean?
So people just use the Google to search for a product. So that's not the right place to look for a thing. So you're looking at two-pronged approach. I mean, you have to have the industry which is imparting the knowledge. You have to have the government which really pushes that self-care or eating healthy is a good thing. So these are two challenges I'm seeing on the kind of awareness. Then you're looking at standardization issues, quality control issues. Countries which are very well known for traditional knowledge, herb is herb, but then what's the active part? So it will take some time.
The science? You mean the science?
The science part, which is going to play a big role slowly. And then, you have a kind of dichotomy of pharmaceutical and nutraceutical, which will, I think in India is going to be a great playing ground where they are going to play together.
So is it the moment for India now?
It's the moment for India.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anand. That sounds so encouraging. Because you said Google, I'm going to take off that and ask you a question. AI is in the news everywhere. So we hear about ChatGPT and so many other things that are happening. So how is AI transforming or can transform the nutraceutical industry to fast pace it? You're in that cusp right now.
So let me take a step back before I get into the role of AI in nutraceutical. Sanjay and Anand, they talk about the scope of nutraceutical in India, and they gave a visibility that what could be the government role, and Anand focused on the challenge and the opportunity, how to become a $100 billion market. It's a huge number, but the way Anand dissected, it looks pretty visible, right? The kind of market, kind of market we have. But there are the role of AI, if you want to be, competitive enough, and if you want to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to competitiveness, I think the role of technology, AI-based or machine learning can definitely help.
I'll interject here. I'm saying we understand now how AI helps in natural language processing.
True.
Just explain a little bit more how it can help in what you are saying.
Okay, so the nutraceutical, we are basically working with the products which comes with a limited shelf life, right? So if you look at any nutraceutical product, finished product, they come up with a 1 year or 2 year shelf life. So what becomes very crucial there, that the stability of the product, it becomes how do we procure the product, when do we procure the product, what is the...
AI can help that?
AI can definitely help that. There is a digitalization of the traceability from harvesting to the end, goes to the end consumer. So you can actually track that, you can make it decision on the basis of AI pattern can help you to make decisions that when to buy, you are not doing the overstocking, when to procure.
So it's
you
like
know, what is
GIT with AI.
Absolutely, absolutely correct. And look at the Indian economy too. You know, if you want to become $100 billion, the involvement of technology has to be there, because you know the traditional method will not work. We are living in a very competitive world. Look at the economies around us. They have a scale of they have a scale. The adoption of new technology in their businesses are faster. So the role of AI in the small and big enterprises is very much essential.
Even in the small, you mean?
Absolutely.
Or more in the small?
I think even in the small, if you want to stay ahead of the competition, the role of AI, be it small and big enterprises, is going to be very
So
essential.
AI is a leveling ground. Will it level the ground between the very big and the very small, which was now a matter of how much of resources, money, people that you had? You think?
Absolutely. I think so. We're gonna adopt it and learn it, because you know it's not going to be the overnight change.
Of course.
Because that you need to bring the skills, how to work with the AI. Again, the data is a very crucial, right?
Yeah.
With the AI, it will not work if you don't have enough data.
Of course.
So one of the example in today's conference, we saw the app called Nutrify Today. You know,
Yeah.
and in nutraceutical, the product development takes time. And just
About
imagine
a year and a half to
a year
two.
and a half just for the one product. And imagine you are working with the thousands of the ingredients and then checking the safety and efficacy of those ingredients and time to market the product. There are so many steps, and humanly it will take time. Just imagine a
can do it.
technology or helping you to make those decisions faster. So I think if you want to stay ahead of the competition, if you want to fight in a new age environment, AI, role of AI or AI-based technology
other
is very essential.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. It's so helpful to know that AI is not just limited to natural language, it's much beyond. And I think what you said about Nutrify Genie is absolutely great, where they have tens of thousands of products, and you can kind of create a new product maybe within minutes, if
Absolutely,
I'm not wrong. Yeah?
absolutely.
Thank you again. I'll move on to Daniel. Daniel, your first visit to India, liking it?
Yeah, love it.
Great. So let me look at this question. You're in China now for the last decade or so. You have an in-depth understanding of what's happening in China in the nutraceuticals market. And you're visiting India for the very first time, probably your second day in. But you've been exposed to this entire conference of Nutrify Today, which is the CXO Summit. Tell me, what can India learn? And you're hearing this big number called $100 billion. And what can India learn from the world, and specifically from China, where you've got so much of experience from?
Yeah, sure. I think just because I experienced the entire COVID-19 outbreak in China, that we saw a massive shock to the supply chain. Whether it was logistics, production, US companies could not source the ingredients they needed. There was a huge bottleneck. And I believe that India really stands at a key moment now, where the US is looking for alternative suppliers. We need a redundant supply chain. We need to diversify. And so I think from what I've seen on the ground here thus far is that Indian companies do understand the US quality requirements, which is essential to building credibility in the US. So whether it's US Pharmacopoeia verified, NSF certified, non-GMO, USDA organic, I think that the Indian market really has their finger on the button here, where they know what's needed in the US market, and now it's just about building that bridge between both markets. And then additionally, I think a lot of the branded ingredients that are coming out of India with a lot of scientific research and clinical trials is essential for the US market, because many US companies would like to expand their function claims for products, and they obviously cannot do that without trials and scientific background.
With one question, considering that India is the pharma hub of the world in a way, there is experience of clinical trials. They know what it means as a country. I don't mean and therefore adoption as a country may not be too difficult. Do you think it's a pathway, or is it a direction showing light?
Yeah, I think absolutely. But I think there needs to be a greater knowledge of the capabilities here in India from the US perspective. So I think that's where we need to do more trade promotion, education, so that the US industry really understands the capabilities here in India. I think
so they don't understand?
Well, I think most people know a lot of pharma ingredients and trials do happen here, but that's more on the pharma side, not on the nutraceutical side. Right. So I think there's quite a bit of education that needs to happen.
So Daniel, one follow-up on this. What did China do right in order for America and the bigger markets to know that this is what exists there, and how the pharmacopoeia is and everything else?
Well, I think the Chinese provincial governments really took a huge investment in our industry, even going back 20 years. You know, they set up bonded zones for companies, huge tax breaks, even land grants, and they were able to really centralize manufacturing and get a scale of economy going that really was enabled them to bring their prices into unbeatable territory.
Is it a price issue or a quality issue?
Well, I think it's both. I think China has good manufacturers, but at the same time, I think the onus also is on the U.S. brands that a lot of times U.S. brands, they also just want the cheapest ingredients,
It's a worldwide problem.
Yeah, it's a worldwide problem. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Daniel. That gives us an international perspective to the whole thing, how we can achieve it. Sanjay, I'll come back to you.
Sure.
And everybody's saying 100 billion, so I think there will be a time when we will come to become the centerpiece of the world in some way. May not be the only player, but centerpiece amongst one or two who can be supplying or buying nutraceuticals and raw materials and the like. But the world is far more diverse than you can kind of put a demographic to a country. Well, you have a Japan which is aging with the lifespans of 100 years or odd, and average working people at 80, as you mentioned recently, and India at a 30 years old. So how do we deal with this diverse set of the global market, if at all we have to be the centerpiece in a decade or so?
Well, you can look at it as a challenge or an opportunity.
Right.
I see the opportunity in it, which is to say, you have the whole world is your oyster.
Yes, indeed.
You've got to pick and choose which markets you want to focus on. And it's not going to be done by one company. It's going to be done by hundreds of companies, which means you need to segment your market. You need to focus on where you want to prioritize your attention. So if you want to sell premium, you want to probably go to Japan, you sell the aging products. You want to go to sports medicine, sports nutrition, you probably go to India and US, because those are the countries that have younger population and will use many more sports products. So I think it's a great opportunity. How you segment your markets, how you look at them, how do you position your company, how do you create your value propositions. And I think that's necessary because each company needs to differentiate itself. You can't be a Me Too business in this industry, because a Me Too business does not guarantee you any volumes or any businesses. Because as Daniel said a little while ago, the US companies are looking at branded ingredients. They're looking at the possibility of making, differentiating their individual products. Right. Okay, and if each company wants to differentiate their product, they need to buy from the best of companies.
And you mentioned the cheapest cost. So
and of course, you got to make it cost effective.
Yes.
But it's still not going to be the cheapest because you don't want to buy generic.
Right.
Okay, you want to buy something which is specialized.
Right.
And so you need to create those, and for that you need to differentiate the company.
Right. Sure.
So I think that opportunity exists for us.
I'm going to ask you one more follow-up to this. I'm saying you're talking about a global market, India having $100 billion in some size, maybe all the businesses together or maybe more. But then is it a time for businesses to collaborate so that you can get scale, which China probably does at a wonderful level? Scale is universal to them. Do you think that's
So I think there are two ways to build scale. Okay, one is of course consolidation. And eventually that will happen at some point or the other.
The bigger buying the smaller?
The bigger buying the smaller, or the stronger buying the weaker.
Right.
Okay, whichever way you look at it. Right. You can buy, if you're a strong company, you can be small, but you can still buy a bigger company. Okay, and buy it into it. The other thing is, we do need the government support in this space. Okay, which is what China has. Okay, very strong government support. Where we need to focus on is things like the PLI scheme that the government of India has. Okay, that's to build scale, and the whole idea is to not subsidize you, but to incentivize you to create scale.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I think that's what we really need. So these are the two ways we can actually create the scale that we need.
How does a private company participate? Let's say government is doing 10 things.
Yeah.
What can a private company set of people collaborate? How can they create scale on their own without?
So there are various ways of doing this. You take an industry association, you can fund it to create research reports. Okay.
Common research
reports, and that common research is available across the whole segment. Let's say study Japan as a market and put it all together and make it available. Right. Now I can pick one product out of it, and you can pick 3 products out of it and make the company go.
But can you and I collaborate in some way to?
Why not two companies collaborate to do the same thing or something similar, or even market products? Okay. We've done examples of that. We've worked with companies where we say, instead of buying a company, we collaborate with you.
Absolutely.
You create the R&D, you create a product, you license it to me.
Right.
And I use my distribution infrastructure to to distribute it. So I take the marketing profits, you take the manufacturing profits. So there are thousands of ways of collaboration.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of thank you so much, Sanjay. Anand, I'm going to come to you with a topic probably you are already involved in a deep way in your company. So the role of AI we spoke about in a generic sense in supply chain and other areas. But tell me practically how is it applied now? Let's say in the future it will, but what is happening today? What is the
Yes, so
value of it? Please do add to that.
it's extremely fun to have this technology on our side.
Really?
Extremely fun, because before that I used to have tons of data and there's no way to analyze it. The manpower is so expensive. I have to hire 20 PhDs to read 200 papers.
Now
I
it's
know
in a
exactly
minute.
how many keywords I want, how many papers I have.
Super.
I run a simple query and it's on my table. So from 200
On
papers...
your own, doesn't have to be on a table. You do it on your own.
I don't even have to talk to anybody. I run the query in-house.
Wow.
We created this program, we wrote this simple script, we're running the query in-house, and I'm reducing my numbers of papers from 400 or 4,000 down to 5.
To read, actually read.
Just to read.
Wow.
And then, even when you open those papers, you can actually even,
Just click that and get a summary.
Sure. Because you understand that developing a product, solving a problem, it's all about getting the right data at the right time.
Yes.
Exact right time. There will be a lot of data. Scientists and me would just go and keep on reading the paper because it's exciting, but then it's not going to read it.
Absolutely. Thank you. This is so exciting. So we're living in good times then, even generally, yeah?
This is an amazing tool. Might go bad too, but we don't
that's
know.
so.
We
That's with
don't know. For any new technology,
Yes,
it just
yes,
can go anyway. It's just a way to how to use it, but it has really given us a tremendous opportunity.
Great. I'm so glad that compression of times are happening. One small little thing, and you can not answer it if you don't want to. Are people losing their jobs because of AI? 20 PhDs?
There will be some losses.
Okay.
It's imperative. It's going to change things. But at the same time, it will create the number of jobs we cannot even imagine.
Really? That's
Because
nice to know.
now you think about it. Instead of hiring those 20 PhDs to do something which is they're not being trained for. They're not being trained to really filter the things. They are smart people. If you just give them 4 keywords and then 4 papers, now you're utilizing them better. So
for that input, I'm going to call you Dr. Anand. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really appreciate that. I'm going to come back to you, Sanjay, now for a little bit of a question that is sensitive but has a lot of government involvement and understanding and need. I believe there's something called a Biodiversity Act currently, which the government has formulated, but I think the vision at that time was not the same vision as it is today, because now there is an industry which is dependent on things that are having biodiversity. Do you recommend some changes in it? Do you think it should be adopted in a way? What is your thinking? How can the government collaborate with the industry?
So I'm going to reset your question
Please,
just a bit.
feel free.
Okay. It's not that they didn't, the objectives of starting the work and today's objectives are very different. I think it's just that how it is being interpreted is different today. Right. The objective was to create a Biodiversity Act for, under the Kyoto Protocol.
Right.
To protect the endangered species of the plants that we have, and to preserve and grow and create more of the
repository.
Biodiversity that we have actually. Now what has happened perhaps somewhere along the way is that it has been used to collect taxes rather than to collect taxes in some indirect way.
Oh, all right, okay.
That they want to collect some money and distribute it to the
favored few.
Whoever. Okay. Let's not get into that zone. It's controversial. I would say they want to distribute it. It's fine. Let's distribute it in the right way, which is it needs to be used.
Official way, you mean official?
Official is also fair, but the right way, which is to use it for the purpose of what it is meant to be, which is to create the bioresources. Now today, the interpretation is being used in a loose sense of way. So we've kind of lost the road, plot somewhere. So I think what is necessary is collaboration between the industry and the administrator.
For a revision?
For a revision, which has already been done.
Okay.
But that is awaiting a parliamentary clearance right now. But interpretation and implementation.
Right.
Okay. So what is the interpretation of each sentence and each word? The law can be interpreted in many ways. And I think we need to agree to the interpretation and align ourselves.
Right.
One, with the objectives in
Clear
place.
objectives, yes.
And the second thing is to use that act effectively to create the resources that are necessary, to fund the projects that are necessary. Okay. And
But
I
the
think-
Act must be changed, is what you feel, or should be
I
implemented?
believe
well?
a lot of the Act has already been changed
Okay.
with the moves we have already made. And I think actions have been taken. The Act has to be passed by the Parliament again.
Which most probably it will be done, I guess.
I suppose so.
May I just ask one question, and this is because I don't understand it. You have wheat, rice, so many other things that are grown. Why are you not protecting, why do you need to protect biodiversity? What is the big issue about that?
So there are many endangered species that are collected, not grown, but are collected from the
From the
farms,
wild.
from the wild. Okay, a lot of Adivasis depend on their livelihood on these things. Now, how do we continue to provide them the wherewithal and the resources to continue to
Can't
live?
it be formalized? And
So that's what we are saying. Formalize it.
Right.
Make it a part of our plantation project. Okay. Get the industry involved in it.
Right.
Get the industry to pay for it.
Absolutely
We are happy
makes
doing
sense.
that.
Absolutely.
We are happy to collaborate and do that. But don't say that you want to collect taxes from us and distribute it to
Right.
people free.
Right. I mean,
This is the
completely
main
makes
point.
sense.
That's the
Completely
main
makes sense. Thank you so much, Sanjay. That's a lot of clarity that I get on this at least, and I'm sure the viewers also do. Let's kind of understand one more part, and we are going to come to Daniel now before we come back. So, as a part of this $100 billion dream and possible journey, the pathway ahead, you've traveled many parts of the world, you've seen companies and seen probably investments they draw. So what type of actions does India need to take to draw the right investments into this? Because without entire global investments, Indian investments, it may take a longer time. So investments are essential, probable grease to this entire thing to move smoothly. So what do you think?
Well, I think in any country, FDI, foreign direct investment, really takes a stable regulatory environment.
Right.
First of all, I mean that's essential, and I think also
In the nutraceutical specific space, or
yeah. Well, I think in any space.
Okay.
I mean, just for an example that's in the news right now, Sequoia Capital, the VC firm out of Silicon Valley, they're breaking off now from their China venture.
Yeah.
Why is that happening? It's happening because the regulatory environment is uncertain right now. And so I think in order to really attract the kind of funding that India is looking for, it needs to have a clear pathway to market for companies. But then I think at the same time, India in the US, I think could do a bigger job of promoting India as a market. I think obviously in the pharma space, India is very well known. I think in the nutraceutical industry, it's less well known. I think there's very outstanding Indian companies that are in the US right now,
right.
and particularly the executives that are working in the US.
Sure.
But sometimes those companies aren't even necessarily seen as Indian companies per se. So I think
True, that's
yeah.
almost like an American company.
Yeah, it's almost like an American company.
Yes.
Most people would really have no idea. And then I think as well, something that we've done in China is allow regulators.
We've done in China. You're Chinese now.
Oh, no. Well,
Just
I'm speaking as UMPA. So, for example, we enabled regulators to meet face to
Right,
face.
it makes so
We
much
held symposiums on technical topics related to our industry. So we introduced the State Administration Market Regulation from China to the FDA in Salt Lake City, where we're headquartered. And I think those types of trade missions and discussions and in-person contact are essential really to build the profile of Indian industry in our segment.
Thank you, Daniel, so much. It gives us a good perspective. We keep talking China in many contexts in India.
Yeah.
One of them is competitive, so I think this helps a lot. I'll come to you, Pankaj, and this is because Fuji Chemicals, the company that you work for, is a Japanese company. And Japan, at least as I believe it, has a huge amount of ethical and a moral set of rules that govern whatever they do. I think they're quite traditional in that. I personally like it quite a bit. So how, just as a connection, that's not the reason I'm asking you, but I'll tell you, probably your organization is more focused on ethics and other things. How do you think the entire industry must go towards this ethical challenge or ethical question? It's not even a challenge, it's a question. And how does that fit into nutraceuticals of the $100 billion?
Okay. So one of the things, Anand mentioned when you asked the question to him, he mentioned about the regulation around the nutraceutical is still evolving,
Yes,
right?
yes.
For India, nutraceutical is not a very old industry, right?
Unless you consider Ayurveda as nutraceutical.
Absolutely, but I would say even the regulation around Ayurveda are also evolving.
Ayush
The
perhaps,
modern, I mean the modernization of the Ayurveda, especially the nutraceutical industry. Look at the magnitude. You have a 20,000 pharma industry pharma companies in India, and then probably the same amount or more or less of nutraceutical companies. When you're saying nutraceutical
There are
companies,
20,000 nutraceutical companies?
I don't I'm not giving a number to that.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is that a huge amount of nutraceutical companies, right? They are working on B2B and B2C space.
Right.
So what happens, the kind of work regulators need to do when it comes to over-promising or mislabeling, I think it's not that possible for
Just
them.
explain mislabeling in a sentence, audiences.
Let's say you are making a direct claim that this particular ingredient can cure this particular disease, which I think by regulation is not
It has
allowed.
to be cure-based, or it can
It has to be
has so
more
much iron?
preventive based,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Because the nutraceutical is all about prevention rather than the cure. Because for the cure, you already have a pharmaceutical products. So what I'm trying to say is that the amount of work they need to do to identify before the claim, and also to identify who is doing the mislabeling, over-promising, or not making a right claim as per the law of the land. So that is where the industry need to come together. You mentioned about Japanese, the ethical practices
Overview
not to
of
do mislabeling part. We still need to go a long way in that way. But in this process, probably I think responsible companies, they do suffer for sure. It is not good for the industry if India is looking at $100 billion and beyond. I think these things need to be controlled.
They need to be universal as well?
I think the law has to be universal about the labeling, and the role of the regulator and also the industry is very important. One of the example regulators in India, or FSSAI, they joined hand with Advertising Standard Council of India.
Have they joined hands already?
They already signed an MOU where they are going to monitor more than 3,000 websites.
And it's $1 trillion.
Absolutely, they're going to monitor more than 3,000 websites. They're going to monitor at least 18 TV channels from where these promises are being made. They want to check what kind of messaging are being transmitted. Are they as per the regulation? I think this kind of partnership is needed, because only regulators cannot just control this misleading.
I'm going to just add one thing over here. So you are saying, in a sense, if you want to become a 100 billion responsible industry,
Absolutely.
trust is at the center.
Absolutely.
And without trust, you will not be able to do it.
Absolutely correct, because the trust, it is built on the quality and efficacy and also the messaging.
And it's a consumer's trust
And
as well as the
consumer trust. It's the consumer trust, and you are dealing with the human nutrition.
Absolutely.
So that way, I think it's very essential for the regulator, also for the industry to be, abide by the law.
Right. So I'm going to come to a small little conclusion with a bit of answers from each one of you. And the role that we want to see is, what is the role of the government? One, to empower. How do you empower? How do you ensure that new businesses innovate in this? And please do share your international experiences as well. Daniel, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll go this way. Sanjay.
So clearly, I think what the government needs to do is to collaborate with and listen to the industry, and reach out and say, let's form a platform through which we make discussions, debates, and rule out decisions.
Today, do you feel empowered as a business?
No, we don't. We don't feel empowered, because the government is still dilly-dallying on, is this, what kind of industry is this? Do you want
They don't understand it?
They don't understand it. And I think we need to create, that's why the department is important.
Right.
Dawn, which we talked about.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you. From your international experiences, what do you think governments are doing globally, and especially in China, that we can emulate quickly enough to empower new businesses, innovation, as well as partnerships with the industry?
Well, I think from my perspective, just being in China during COVID,
Yes,
there was a drop-off of any interaction between governments. So we didn't see too much there. But I think what could happen between the US and China is really putting together a trade promotion council, where we get executives from the US side, from the Indian side. We can start
And businessmen also.
Yeah, businessmen. And really begin a dialogue, and then begin to inform our respective regulators about issues within the market, trade, and even involve our departments of commerce, so everyone's interacting together.
It's like a very well-oiled, let's say the oil and gas ministry. So how they will deal with the international oil and gas, probably department. That's the way you want this to be. So learning from every other, any other big sector, IT sector, for example. So I'm sure there is a IT ministry which is speaking to the IT ministry there, and everything else is happening.
And data. So we want to, for example, one of our priorities is really to understand where ingredients are coming from. How many,
sourcing?
Yeah, sourcing.
Origins.
How many ingredients are coming from X country, and if we can institute a system here in India between India and the US, and it's very transparent where trade flows are happening, whether it's ingredients going to the US or finished products coming to India, I think that would build a lot of support from our respective governments.
Sounds really, really the right way to go. So I'm going to come to the same questions, Anand. Two things. How do you get empowered as a business? How do you encourage innovation in a sector like this?
Small things like, when I did my PhD in India, I hardly paid $10. Somebody paid for it.
Yes.
It was not me. So a taxpayer paid for my entire PhD. So the data I created, and data created by millions of PhD students over the years, is sitting in vaults. Government can have access to this data because it belongs to them.
Absolutely.
It taxpayers' money. Catalog it, bring it out, make it public.
Wonderful
Think
idea.
about the data which is available to the industry out of a database like that. There's tons of work done on botanicals every day. CSIR, CMAP, CDRIs.
You can't access that?
You can access it, but it's fragmented.
Okay.
You have to go to each and every website, find it, catalog it, bring it out. But this is something which is available.
Government can do now.
Government can. So
And
basically,
to your earlier question,
information flow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just make
Makes
information
sense
flow
with
to
the
us.
earlier answer, it was just seeming so appropriate. Pankaj, we'll close with you, but let's have the same question back to you before we close. Empowerment and innovation. How does the government help in that?
I think we have a two very good example. India is very evolved pharmaceutical industry, right? It's a huge pharmaceutical economy. The government has all the data points to learn from how pharmaceutical industry evolved and translate the same and facilitate the same process in the nutraceutical industry. And because Nutra is going to be really, really big industry, whether we call it $100 billion or more, beyond or less than that, because you are dealing with 1.4 billion people and you need to cater their nutritional
Indians,
needs, right? Yes. So absolutely it make a huge market. So now how to address that ecosystem, I think probably the very clear-cut regulations are needed around it, which will facilitate not only the innovation, but also empower people to invest money. If the regulations are not very clear, right, then we see all these kind of barriers where people are not ready to invest in the innovation. People are not ready to do the new product development, and there are a lot of barriers
Why
to that.
I mean, just as a ending point.
I just want to give you one of the example. Let's say there are the few ingredients in the approved ingredient list. Some of the ingredients are mentioned as a maximum intake per day, and some of them are without any the
specificity
daily
to that.
Exactly. So as a company, how much should I put in a product? So that creates a lot of confusion.
Are you saying
right?
one is a branded ingredient where you know how much to put, the other is a generic ingredient where you
So
don't know?
that's where the confusion needs to be clear, right? But if it is a research-based ingredient, and that means it's a safe and efficacious, so there has to be a different treatment for those kind of safe and quality
The
products.
raw ingredient must get the same treatment as the end product.
So that's where the regulation is not very clear right now. So what I'm focusing on, that the regulation around it has to be very clear, so that the people can come and
Confidence
invest.
to trust,
Exactly.
to invest in this.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, I cannot tell you how happy I am to have conducted this, and hopefully we'll see you in the journey, many more journeys towards the 100 billion.
Thank you. That's
And
right.
I'm
Look
hoping
forward
that
to that.
all of you get a large portion of that 100 billion.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Have a great day.
Thanks.